You're listening to a Hebrew in Israel podcast with Yoel Halevi, exploring the language, culture, and history of the Bible. For more information, visit us at HebrewInIsrael.net.
Okay, so we've done that. Now I want to go over the prayer of Solomon. This is also an opportunity maybe to ask some questions if you do have any before I get to it. But if you don't, there's a lot of verses here. And I'm really going to be skipping from around verse 22. I'm not going from the beginning of the chapter. I want to give a very quick scheme, a survey of what the first part say, but I really want to go into the actual prayer. So we really, he dedicates the tabernacle. He does it b'chag. This is verse 2. B'chag. Chag is really a code word for Sukkot. B'yerech ha'etanim. Etanim is actually apparently a Phoenician name for the month. So everyone complains, Tishrei is a pagan name for Tashritu and so on. Yeah, but the ancient Israelites sometimes also use the other names as well. There's agricultural names, which is perfectly fine. First, second, third month is also perfectly fine. But we find every once in a while, especially in the Book of Kings, Yerech ha'etanim and Yerech Bul, which are not. I always thought these were Hebrew names. These are not. These are Phoenician names as well. And Bul relates to the Abubu, which is the flood, and so on, which has to do with the rain. These are names which might be even in connotation of something which is a little bit more pagan. So when people complain about, these names were taken from Babylon, and Babylon is all evil, listen, it's an administrative thing. Why does it mention the Yerech ha'etanim? Because they were using code names for different things as well, because there was also administration. They had to communicate with the environment surrounding them. They couldn't just tell someone, the first month. Well, according to what calendar do you follow, this is the first month. So we find these names. It's just an administrative thing. There really is nothing forbidden about stuff like this, especially because most of these names don't really have any pagan meaning. So they take the ark in, they're doing all these sacrifices and so on. Solomon, basically from verse 12 to 21, is, there's a cloud that appears. The same cloud, by the way, appears in the tabernacle. We haven't seen it yet, but it appears in things like the next chapter or something like that. What's very interesting is that when they dedicated the second temple, there's, this midrash that talks about a story that was going around that they were expecting to see a cloud and stuff like that show up and fire come down from the heaven. It doesn't happen. And I think one of the versions, the book of Maccabees, has a similar expectancy when they rededicate the tabernacle. So when they rededicate the temple during the second temple, the second dedication during the Hasmonean period. And it didn't happen. And that's when, they realized something wasn't right. Obviously, something is very, very bad. Now, what's interesting is it refers to as a Beit Zvul, which is meaning an exalted place of dwelling. Zvul, by the way, it's interesting he uses the term Zvul because this is a term that we find amongst the Phoenicians as well as the exalted places of the gods. And I remember that King Solomon actually bought Phoenician workers to build. So, the temple that they built here was really a temple that relates to the overall culture of the region. Okay? But in any case, he starts the prayer and he really goes into some really interesting points. It says, Vayamod Shlomo, so this is verse 22, chapter 8, 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 22. Vayamod Shlomo lifnei mizbach Adonai. Solomon stood in front of the altar of the Lord. So he's standing in basically the same place that the chieftains were standing. Okay, he actually kind of changes positions every once in a while. But here he's standing in front of the altar, identical to what the chieftains did. So he's there really to represent the chiefs of Israel. He is the chief of chiefs, but obviously the elders and the heads of the tribes and so on there as well. He gathers everyone, but he's also gathering as many people as possible. So we'll probably have to imagine a small temple mount, much smaller than what it is today, and there's people just standing on the mountains all around, trying to be as close or to see something and so on. Neged kol kehad Yisrael, in parallel, in front of. So he probably has his back to them, and he's standing in parallel. The people of Israel are behind him, and he's standing in front of the altar, facing the temple. Vayfos kapav hashamayim, and he spread his palms to the heavens, because this is one of the gestures of prayer, lifting up your hands. when you go into a synagogue, people do sometimes lift their hands, and there's all these gestures and so on, but we really have a minimal amount today. And then there's always the whole thing about, hand waving churches. People lift their hands. So it's part of the prejudice, and there's nothing wrong with it. So then he starts the prayer, and he says, Vayomer, and he said, Adonai Elohi Israel, Lord God of Israel, En kamocha Elohim, there is no God like you. Is this a pure monotheistic statement, or is it saying there's no one like you, even if you claim that they are a God? It's an interesting discussion, which I really no time to go into this. Bashamayim nimal, and the heavens above, Vala'aretz mitachat, and on the earth below. And this is a very important statement. Shomer habrit ve'achesed. He keeps his covenant and his mercy, or his grace that he promised. La'avadecha ha'olechim lefanecha b'chol libam. To your servants, which walk before you with all their heart. He's hinting, my father told me I have to make a promise that this is the way I will behave. And he's kind of reiterating something his father said to him. And he also specifically refers to his father. Asher shamarta le'avdecha David avi, which you have kept to your servant David my father. Asher dibarta lo, which you spoke to him. V'tedaber beficha, and you spoke with your mouth. Uveyadcha mileta kayom hazeh, and with your hand you fulfilled. Again, mouth is a metaphor, hand is a metaphor, represent speech and then action. And you have fulfilled this as this very day. You're now seeing the fruition of your promise. So, one of the very central things about the God of Israel, this is one of the main things, and you ask, what does the name of God of Israel really mean? He who exists, but also he who is loyal to his promises. Verse 25, Ve'ata Adonai Elohei Yisrael, and now, as a result, Ve'ata is usually a word that's used to represent the ideas. As a result of the above statement, Adonai Elohei Yisrael, Lord God of Israel, Shemo le'avdecha David avi, keep to your servant David my father, et asher dibarta lo le'mo, that which you have spoken to him, saying, Lo yikaret lecha ish milefanai, will not be cut off for you a person before me. Basically, your family would continue, saying, I stood up to do what my father intended to do. Please protect me and please protect my descendants. Yoshev al Kisei Yisrael, sitting on the throne of Israel. Rak, however, he's again reiterating what his father said. Only if your children will guard their path, their way of behavior, to walk before me. To walk before God is not some mystical thing. It's doing the correct thing before God. So, when people talk about, Chanoch walked before Elohim or with Elohim or something like that, it's really more that he was observant of what God expects of mankind, and he did the right thing, not to participate in the violence and to be a good person and so on. And that's really means to walk before God. So if you are Torah observant and you keep the Torah to the best of your ability, everything, you are walking with God. You are walking before God. You don't have to look for some mystical meaning. It's actually very practical and very down to earth. Kasher halachta lefanai, as you have walked before me. So he's paraphrasing, he's referring to David. Va'ata Elohei Yisrael, and now the God of Israel. Ya'amen na devarecha. May your words be truthful. May they presented as truthful. Because of the word amen, which really means loyal and truthful. So may your words be found truthful by fulfilling them. Shel dibarta le'avdecha David avi, which you spoke to your servant, David, my father. Ki ha'umnam, for it really is it possible. Yeshev Elohim ala haaretz, that God will dwell on the earth. Hine hashamayim u'shmei hashamayim lo yechalkelucha. Behold, the heavens and the heavens of the heavens, physical and spiritual realms, cannot contain you. So this is this really relates more to the more classic monotheistic principle that God is his magnitude is beyond the universe. So this really is much more of a transcendent, much more abstract God. And this might actually be an indication of what the original belief of the Israelites was. So I've always had this discussion about Ben Somer arguing that in the eyes of the Israelites, the God of Israel had some kind of a form. But based on this prayer of Solomon, he's actually expressing a much more abstract God. Afki abayta zeh asher baniti. Even this house, if that can't continue, even this house which I have built obviously can't contain you. However, ufanit al tfilat avdecha ve'el tchinato Adonai Elohai. However, you would turn. The vav here is a vav of contrast, I would argue. You're so great and awesome and abstract and way beyond any of what we are. However, turn to the prayer of your servant and to his plea, Lord my God. Lishmoel harina ve'latefila, to hear the song and the prayer. Asher avdecha mitpalel lefanecha hayom, which your servant is praying before you today. It's interesting, this entire prayer focuses only on prayer. It doesn't focus on sacrifices. Everything here is prayer. He's always resorting to prayer. Because prayer is the most simple thing anyone can offer. He's following the common denominator of everyone. And the fact is that if you are down to nothing, the only thing that you have left to do is pray. You're so poor, you can barely feed yourself. But you always have prayer. And in the spirit of all-inclusiveness, he's focusing on prayer, not because of some arguments that you see with these different scholars where they say, oh yeah, he's praying because this must be some kind of earlier sentiment amongst the Israelite faith where sacrifices are less important, or maybe this is after the exile where people are living far, far away, so the only thing they have is prayer. No, I think that this is the wrong way of looking at text, like other things that I've seen throughout the years. It's quite possible that the reason he's talking about prayer is because you strip down the human being to everything that a human being has, what he has left is prayer. So verse 29, Liot einecha fetuchot, that the eyes will be open, el habayit hazeh, to this house, laila vayom, day and night, always, el hamakom, to the place, asher amarta yihyeh shemi sham, you said my name will be there. Okay, this actually might be a hint to Deuteronomy and a much more, a contradiction to what I've been arguing throughout the years, that this is a fulfillment of that promise. Or the place that your Lord, your God, will choose, but you can also argue, my name will be there. That kind of hints more to Exodus 20. Any place I place my name there will come and bless you. So this might be more of a hint to Exodus and not Deuteronomy. Lishmoy la tefillah, to hear the prayer, asher yitpa'el avdecha, which your servant will pray, el hamakom hazeh, to this place, basically directing yourself to this place. Does it mean you have to physically direct yourself, or is it more mentally directing yourself? Veshamata el tchinat avdecha ve'amecha Yisrael, you will hear the plea of your servant and your people Israel, asher yitpa'elu el hamakom hazeh, which will pray to this place. Ve'ata tishma, you will hear. Don't just they're going to mumble. Also, they're not going to say words. You also will hear. It has to be two-sided. El mekom shivtecha el hashamayim, to your place of dwelling to the heavens. V'shamata v'salachta, and you will hear and you will forgive. So this is obviously prayer that's related also to sin. Et asher cheta ish lere'ah, when a person sins to his friend. V'nasavo Allah le'ha'alato, and he bore the oath to force it into an oath. This again goes back to what we read in Leviticus. Sacrifices which are offered for people lying to one another and so on. This is really described as being someone that's supposed to bring a sacrifice, but he's focusing on the prayer again. Uva ala lifnei mizbachacha, this oath, which is really a curse as well, if you're lying and so on, will come before your altar, babayit hazeh, in this house. So it's interesting, altar. Why does he say altar and not just before you in this house? He's hinting to the principle of sacrifice, but he's also hinting again to the common denominator that everyone can be involved in. Verse 32, V'ata tishma shamayim, and you will hear in the heavens, Ve'asita v'shafata et avadecha, and you will do and you will judge your servants. Le'arshia rasha, to convict the wicked. Latet darko berosho, to give his way upon his head, basically punish him. It's interesting. He's taking a very moral stance here, more like more in the area of the wisdom writings, which is very typical of Solomon. The wicked. You can read Proverbs, you get this kind of very similar language. Ulhatzdik tzaddik, and to justify the righteous. Latet lo ketzit kato, to give him in accordance to his righteousness. And then he starts going into like very, very specific scenarios. Behin nagef ammecha, this is verse 33. Behin nagef ammecha Yisrael lifne oyev, when your people are defeated before their enemy, when your people of Israel are defeated before their enemies, asher yachteu lach, which they sin to you. Defeat doesn't come from being you weaker or stronger and so on, it's because they sin to you. But there's a moral message here. Veshavu elecha, and they will return to you. They understand their sin. Vehodu et shemecha, and they will. Hodu might not be necessarily praise your name, and also in a way confess to your name, but because it doesn't have to be necessarily from the root hada or yada in the sense of to praise. Something the hodot is to confess. So it might be that they will confess to your name. V'itpalelu v'itchanenu, and they will pray and they will beg. Elecha b'bayit hazeh, to you in this house. V'ata tishma shalom, and you were here in the heavens. V'salachta, and you will forgive. Lechatat amnecha Yisrael, to the sin of your people Israel. It's interesting, he repeats the term people of Israel over and over again, because he's trying to include everyone, all the tribes. Everyone is part of this. Everyone here now is under the category of Israel. He's not saying Israel and Judah like we see in Samuel and many parts of the book of Kings. He's always referring to Israel as a singularity. Vashevotam el adama, and he will bring them back to the land. Asher natata la'avotam, which you give to their ancestors. So praying to you in this house, it might be that they'll pray to you from distance, but also part of the people will come into the house to pray. Ve'atzel shamayim v'lo yhiyem matar. So when the heavens are blocked or stopped, and there would not be rain, ki yehateu lach, for they sin to you. Ve'itpaelu el hamakom hazeh, and they will pray to this place. Ve'hodu et shemecha, and praise or confess to your name. Umihatotam yeshuvun ki ta'anem, and from their sin they will repent, they will return, for you have tormented them, you have punished them. V'ata tishma hashamayim, and you were here in the heavens. V'salachta, and you will forgive. Lechatat avdecha ve'amnecha Yisrael, to the sins of your avadecha, your servants, and your people Israel. Ki torem et haderech hatova, for you will show them, you will instruct them. Just in case you only have it's like the word Torah or Torem as a verb. They instruct, you instruct them. Et haderech hatova, the good path. Asher yechuva. Again, path is very common with wisdom writings. Asher yechuva, which they will walk upon it. Ve'natatam matar al artzecha, and he will place rain upon your land. So this is forgiving them, but also fixing the problem with the rain. Asher natata le'amnecha le'nachala, which you have given your people as an inheritance. Tyler says, like in Psalm 119, 108, except I beseech thee the free will offering of my mouth, O Lord, and teach me thine ordinance. It's one version. And then there's another one. This is the one. There's another one, which is the one you point out. There's two of them which refer to an acquaintance of lip speech, basically prayer and sacrifices being very similar. So as she starts going into more details, Ra'av ki evaretz, if there was a famine, Dever ki, if there was a plague, Shidafon yirakon arbe chasid, all these rotting of the different types of rotting of the produce, locusts of different types, if there will be. Ki yatzar lo oyevo ba'aretz be'eretz sha'arav, if there are enemies standing at the gates of the people, the land, which they're destroying the fields, like we have today. We have enemies at the gates, and they're trying to burn fields here in Israel. Kol nega, kol mahala, all afflictions and all diseases. Kol tfilah, kol techina, all prayer and all pleading. Asher tiyeh lechol ha'adam, which will be to all men, will be to all people. Lechol amecha Yisrael, to all you people of Israel. Asher yedaun ish nega levavo, which they will know each person the affliction of their heart. Turn to him and pray. Ufaras kapav, and he will spread forth his hands. So it seems to be the pleading, the begging comes in. So if you're pleading with God, you have to lift up your hands. El habayit hazeh, to this house. V'ata tishma hashamayim, and you are here in the heavens. Machon shivtecha, the established place of your dwelling. V'salachta, and you will forgive. Ve'asita, and you will do. V'natata le'ish kechol derachav, and you will give to each person in accordance to his ways. Asher tedai et levavu, which you will know his heart, an all-knowing God. So there's all this whole discussion that through prayers we actually know what the real beliefs of Israel were. I actually spent some time studying this stuff. It's very interesting. Ki ata yadata levadecha, for you alone know et levav kol bnei adam, the hearts of all men. Leman yiraucha, but there's a reason for this, for they will fear you. Kol hayamim, all the days. Fear not to say the negative way, by the way. Hashem chaim al penei adama, which they live upon the earth. Okay? Hashem chaim al penei adama, this kind of slightly resembles Deuteronomy, by the way. Asher natata la'avotenu, which have given to our ancestors. Here's the big punchline for me. Vegam el hanochri, and also to the stranger. This is not a sojourner or anything. This is a non-Israelite. Asher lo me'ammecha Yisrael, who is not from your people Israel. Uva me'eretz rechoka, and he had come from a distant land. Lema'an shemecha, for the sake of your name. Ki yishme'on et shimcha hagadol, for they will hear your great name. Et yadecha hazaka, and your strong arm, and your strong hand. V'zoracha netuya, and your stretched forth arm. Uva v'itpalel habayit hazeh, and will come and pray in this house. It's not converting. You can follow the God of Israel even without converting. This is the hint here. You're not obligated to Torah, but you can still be part of this structure, even as not as in Israel. He says this is for all mankind, truth. Ata tishma shamayim mechon shivtecha, you are here in the heavens, the established place of dwelling. Ve'asita kechol asher yikra elecha anochi, and you will do as all the stranger, the foreigner calls to you. Leman yede'un, for they will know. Kol ame'at, all the nations of the land will know. Et shemecha lira'otecha ke'amecha Yisrael, to fear you as your people Israel. Ve'lada'at ki shimcha nikra, to know, or acknowledge that your name is called, is placed. Al habayit hazeh asher baniti, on this house which I have built. There's a bit of an argument. This is a little bit of arrogance from his side. Now, upon this house, he should have stopped the sentence there. I think there's a midrash that says that this was an element of arrogance. They say, oh, this is a little bit to my glory. But you can argue that, I have built, and he's actually coming from a different direction, saying, no, I'm humbled that I was allowed to build this, as the opening states. But this is a very, very interesting statement. They can show up at this temple. Were there limitations of where they can go? Maybe they were told you can't enter without cleansing yourself and so on. It's quite possible. But the moment they cleansed themselves, they probably were allowed to come close. You never know. So we have this attitude that, the court of the Gentiles. That principle may have not existed in the first temple. We don't hear it here. We never hear it anywhere. Verse 44. If your people go out to war against their enemy, on the path at which you will send them. So this might hint to an instruction that has to come from a prophet or from a Kohen how to go to this war. Basically, we'll learn to himself. He's like you always have to be in contact with the temple even when you go out to the battle itself. They will pray to the Lord through this city. Through the city is an interesting question. Is it when they're in the city, when they go to ask the question, or do they direct their thoughts or actually physically turn to the city? It's an interesting question. Asher bacharta ba, which you have chosen it. Va'abayit asher baniti l'shimcha, and the house which I have built to your name. Interesting, to your name, for you. He's acknowledging that God can't really dwell inside us. Veshamata Hashemayim, when you hear in the heavens, et tefilatam v'tchinatam, their prayer and their plea. Ve'asita mishpatam, and you would do their judgment. Ki hate'ulach, verse 46, if they sin to you, ki en adam asher lo yachata, for there is no man who will not sin, who does not sin. It's stating a fact. Ve'anaftavam, and you will be angry with them. Ve'natatam lifnei oyev, and you will place them, you give them in the hands of an enemy, before an enemy. Ve'shavu shovehem el eretz oyev, and they will capture their captivity to the land of the enemy. Rechoka ukrova, near or far. Ve'shivu el libam, and they will return to their hearts. They will repent. Be'aretz asher nishbu sham, the land which they were captive there. Ve'shavu v'tchanenu elecha be'eretz shovehem lemor, and they will return and they will beg to you, plead to you, in the land of their captivity, saying, Chatanu ve'evinu rashanu. So we have sinned, we have crooked ways, and we have become wicked, or we are guilty. By the way, these three words are actually used to this very day in the Jewish confession. Veshavu elecha, they will return to you b'chol levavam v'chol nafsham, with all their heart and with all their soul. Again, the whole idea of Deuteronomy. We don't have the me'odecha here because we're referring to the emotion. Me'odecha will be your possessions or your might. Be'eretz oivehem asher shavu otam, in the land of their enemies was they were captive there. V'itparelu elecha derech artzam, they will pray to you through their land, asher natat la'avotam, which you have given to their ancestors. I would argue the word derech really refers to pathway, and this actually probably means you literally have to turn yourself. The same way a pathway leads you somewhere physically, you actually physically have to position yourself facing to Jerusalem and the Temple Mount. So this actually might be a hint to the practice we have to this very day in Judaism. Ha'ir asher bacharta, the city which you have chosen, v'habayit asher banita lishmecha, the house which I have built to your name. V'shamata hashamayim, when you hear in the heavens, machon shivtecha, your established place of dwelling, et tfilatam ve'et chinatam, their prayer and their plea. So notice this is a motif. So this is a prayer. It follows the very common style of language that, you have like a chorus, you repeat certain words over and over again. Ve'asita mishpatam, and you do their judgment. Ve'salachta le'ammecha, and you will forgive your people, asher chate'ulach, which have sinned against you. U'lechol pishe'em, and to all their transgressions, asher pash'uvach, which they have transgressed against you. Bet here is bet of despondent, so it's against you. Untatam lerachamim lifnei shovehem v'richamu, and you will place them as mercy before their captors, and they will feel mercy towards them. Ki ammecha v'nachalatcha, for they are your people and your inheritance. They have sinned, but they are still your people and inheritance. Asher hotzetam mimitzrayim, which you brought forth from Egypt. Mitoch ku habarzel, from the melting pot, the smelting pit of iron, which was probably one of the most difficult processes they had at the time. Liot einecha fetuchot el tchinat avdecha, that your eyes will be open. Again, returning to the idea of asher einei Adonai Elohecha ba merishon shana lachavit shana, the eyes of your Lord God. This is should be in Deuteronomy, I think. Or is this really numbers? I don't remember right now. His eyes open on the land from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, same, hinting to that type of language. Your eyes, because you're from a distance, physically here. Your eyes will be open to the plea of your servant, and to the plea of your people Israel, to hear them, to listen to them, when they call out to you, anything that they call out to you. For you have separated them to be your inheritance, from all the people of the land. As you've spoken in the hand or through Moses, your servant, when you brought them out of the land of Egypt, Lord God. So there's a lot of hints here to a lot of principles, which we find in in other parts of the Torah, but it's very clear this prayer is linked not just to sentiments and so on, but it's also linked to things that we've seen throughout the readings. The writer, the Solomon, or the person puts the words in Solomon mouth, but Solomon is basically showing a lot of sentiment towards things that which you already know. You have to be aware of the Torah to really fully understand everything he's saying, the hints here. But this great focus on prayer, as I said earlier, really, with all the sacrifices and everything, kind of strips away all the niceties and all the physical elements of a person, just only leaves the person bare before God. And then what you're left with, the plea, the last thing the thing that everyone has, and the thing that is the last thing a person can always offer, is just the words of plea. So it's a with all the ceremony and everything, Solomon also says, don't forget to be humble. Don't forget the simple things that make us human before God. Comments, questions. So Rick says the prayers mentioned in the text are heart pleas and not liturgical. Yes. So remember we spoke about this last week as well. Was it 2 weeks? Or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. But the whole idea of prayer mostly being spontaneous. So the answer is most definitely this is not liturgy. This is people pouring their heart, and it's pretty amazing. He's talking about pour your heart before God. Shifchi kamayim libech nochach b'nei Adonai. Pour your heart as water in the presence of the Lord. It's taking a person, whatever words you have, just pour them out however they come out, however type of words you have. He is not saying, here you have to read these specific texts. He's not saying you have to bring these specific. He's focusing, really, this is why the prayer is so... I've been wanting to teach this prayer for a very, very long time for a very simple reason. It really boils the person down to the essence of a human being before God. And all you have is prayer. You have a person who's wealthy and he brings as much as he wants. You have a person who brings whatever he can. You have a person who shows up and all he can do is pray. The only thing to do is pray. Because that's all he has. That's all he has. It's tefillah. He only has the plea that he can present before God. Okay, so just to close this up, this was the 6th of May, 2000.